I messed up. Hunting is full of highs and lows, and I feel like we don't talk enough about the mistakes on social media, in podcasts, and I want to share a real moment of regret that I have from this year. One that's made me question everything I know about judging maturity and age of deer. It impacted a friendship and left me with a lesson I will never forget. If you've ever doubted a decision you've made while hunting or in the field, or if you've had a decision that you've made that you wish you could take back, this episode is for you. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I'm Angela Kosovic. I started this podcast to share my experiences, hard-won lessons, and insights that I have over my hunting career. I started hunting for the first time in 2018. I did not grow up in a hunting family. In fact, I never touched a gun until I joined the Marines. And I went on my very first hunt in 2018 with my best friend Peter. We went from Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, all the way across the country to southwest Montana to go hunt elk and mule deer on a non-resident elk and mule deer combination tag. And we didn't fill any tags that hunt. We didn't see a single elk. We saw a few mule deer, but I was hooked on hunting after that. And I have hunted as much as possible since then. I've now hunted 7 different states, including Montana, of course, Wyoming, Arizona, Utah, New Jersey, Texas, and now Tennessee. Those are the 7 states I've currently hunted in. Hoping to go back to Wyoming this year, but that's a story from another podcast for another podcast. Let's dive in to the mistake. Let me set the stage for what happened here. Before Tennessee, I lived in Texas for 5 years almost. And hunting in Texas is different than anywhere else in the country for a lot of reasons. But one of the biggest ones is 98% of the state is private land. If you want to hunt, you pretty much need to either pay for private land access or know someone that has private land. And fortunately for me, I've made some friends. I've got, and this story centers around a friend that has a big hunting ranch in South Texas. It used to be family land. It is now officially his land, and he is turning it into a proper hunting outfitter next year. I hesitated sharing this story because of how different Texas is and how people may not relate to the specific experience that I'm talking about. But I think that the emotions, the reality of hunting and how this impacts us and the decisions that we have to make every day in the field, also given the brand that I'm trying to build here of authenticity and transparency, I felt I had to own up to my mistakes and just come out and lay it all out there. So I've had the opportunity to hunt this ranch before. It's always been management deer. On this particular hunt is the last one of the season, and the hope is we're going to take a decent number of deer. So Peter is actually out here this as well. But the goal going into the very first day, the first morning hunt, was let's all aim to shoot a doe first. If you don't see a doe, you're looking for a mature deer. Now, the way things work in Texas is not like anywhere else. You're looking at this particular ranch. The oldest deer I've seen taken off of it is about 10 and a half. And the last time I was there, I think I took an 8.5-year-old buck. And they do the tooth aging and everything like that on this place. So they have a decent idea what they're doing. Now, the goal, like I said, the first morning was does. Like that was the intent. We were going to go with does. We're going to try and take a doe first and then take a buck. In reality, he just wanted everyone to take does off the ranch and to target the deer. Now, I've taken management deer off of this place before by myself, so I thought that I would be in good shape. Unfortunately, that was not the case. So let me set a picture. I'm sitting in the hunting blind. It's dark and it's actually cold for once. I'm wearing my puffy coat and it's me by myself. The sun is just starting to get up enough that I can see outlines of animals moving in the distance. In Texas, they use feeders, and I'm looking at the feeder, and there's nothing there. But to my right and to my left, I see what looks like deer moving. It's still too dark that when I'm looking through my binoculars, I can't tell if they're bucks yet. But I'm getting excited. Seeing deer movement is fantastic, especially with the year that I had in Tennessee, seeing anything was exciting. As the morning comes in, I can finally start to see the outlines of antlers. Now, directly in front of me, I have a young 8-point buck. And he looks young because his antlers are thin and they're not that long. He's pretty big, but you can tell right off the bat that he is not mature, not the class that we're looking for in terms of age. It's less about antlers and more about age on this ranch right now, at least for management. Then I look to my left and I see a very young 6-point. I mean, this guy's got to be a year and a half at most. Very, very young. Then in the distance, I see this, what looked like huge deer. He's got kickers on both sides, and he is probably 200 yards away. And I'm just like, wow, that is the coolest looking deer I've ever seen. Well, I'm watching him, and in my head, I'm like, I'm not sure about him. Let's wait a little longer. Let's see if any does come in. I'm trying to get a doe. Well, about 45 minutes comes by, and I have now watched all 3 of these bucks come in and out and in and out. Nothing's gone to the feeder. They're all just kind of feeding around. And this buck continues to work his way in. And he gets to about 80 yards and then disappears. I'm like, all right, well, he's gone. That opportunity is gone. At this point, I've texted our group chat about him. He disappears. And I think, well, that's it. He's done. There's no does. I'm going to guess that this morning is a bust. I'm not seeing anything. Well, about 2 minutes after I say that, he shows up right in front of my blind, 40, 45 yards away, perfectly broadside eating browse. And I am just blown away at this deer. And I've been watching him for almost an hour at this point. So there he is, 45, 40 yards in front of me, perfectly broadside. I'm looking at him through the binoculars and I'm like, this is a mature deer. He looks like a grandpa compared to the other 2 bucks that I've seen. I've seen no other deer this morning. He's got grayer face. He's got, really thick and wide antlers, the cool palmation, the kicker, all that stuff. And some part of me felt like, he put himself in this spot. He hasn't gone to a feeder still. He's eating browse. He's right in front of me. He's come and gone. And so I was like, you know what? This looks like the maturity of a deer that we're trying to take. Let me pull out the rifle, get centered on shot, and then take the shot. Now my rifle's 0 to 200 yards, and it's also this big behemoth, so I'm trying to work it through the window, get sighted in, and I'm aiming real low because it's sighted at 200 and he's at 40, 45 yards. I'm trying to get a hard shot. He's still perfectly broadside, just has no clue I'm there, eating this browse. I take a breath, pull the trigger, and it was, in fact, a perfect heart shot. He did not take a step. He immediately just plopped straight on the ground. Now, I felt pretty decent about it at first. I had reconciled with myself that this was a mature deer. This was the age class of deer that we're looking for. Not only that, it's the coolest deer I'll probably ever take in my life. I will put some pictures up right now that you can see what it looked like. A couple of shots of it laying down. I got a couple of shots with the deer. But as I walked up to it, that sinking feeling hit. He was not the mature deer that I thought he was. He was not the age class that we were looking for. He was a great buck. Like I said, and if you saw the pictures, if you're watching this, he's a fantastic buck. Really unique. And like I said, I will probably never shoot anything like it again. But my heart sank because I knew that this was not a deer I should have taken. Now, bear in mind, this is going to be a trophy ranch. That's what this is ultimately going to be. full hunting outfitter. They have walk-in coolers, or walk-in freezer, a whole butchering area. They've got a lodge that people can stay at. This is going to be and is a very, very nice hunting camp. And people will probably pay a lot of money to hunt in the future there. And this deer, in 2 or 3 years, would have fetched a very pretty penny. But that can't happen because I shot him earlier than I should have. The first picture I took was just head on, and I sent it to the group chat with the owner, my friend that has the ranch and the property. And that's where it all set in. We talked on the phone, and he gave me I'm not upset, I'm disappointed. Now, I don't think I've ever heard that from my dad. But that feeling just ripped me in a way that I haven't felt before. Anyone who knows me in person, in reality, not over the podcast, I try to be transparent. I try to be real. I take my reputation very seriously. I take the relationships that I built very seriously. I try to act the best I can in all situations, even when no one is looking. And here I am, screwing up, potentially costing my friend thousands of dollars of potential revenue in the future. And I thought at that moment, the biggest thing that ran through my head was, am I a shitty friend? Am I a bad person? Is he ever going to trust me again? Is he judging my character? Are we still going to be friends? I went down this rabbit hole of very negative thoughts, all immediately, all sorts of emotions, and even talking about this is bringing some of those back. I wanted to leave. I told him I would leave. I even said, do you want me to pay you? Do you want me? I don't know if I've said that already in this podcast, but I've never paid for hunting like this. And frankly, I don't have the money to pay for a deer of the quality that he was today. But he didn't want money. He basically, at the end of the day, he wished the deer could have grown to be a few years older because he would have been a phenomenal deer. I mean, he ended up scoring about 140 inches. If you gave him 3 years on this ranch where there's basically no hunting pressure, there's not a whole lot of predators, and they supplement with feed and protein, he would have been a real slammer. The slammer that I thought he was when I looked at him through the binos. And yeah, this just made me question everything. I wanted to leave. I didn't want to hunt. I still kind of don't want to hunt on that ranch. I wish I never took that shot. I wish I could take it back. I didn't want to take any pictures. I didn't want to do anything with this buck. I wish that I could just forget it, pretend like it never happened, and move on. But that is not how life works. That is not how stewardship and conservation work. Once you pull that trigger or release that arrow, that's it. There is no taking it back. It's been over a month since that hunt. That hunt happened in early January. We're almost 2 months away from it happening. In case anyone is wondering, our friendship is still fine. He probably doubts my judgment. I doubt my judgment on aging deer. I would no longer be comfortable shooting a buck on his ranch without himself or a guide to ensure that it is, in fact, appropriate for the type of deer that they are trying to take off of the ranch. My friend told me that he still wanted me to mount it because it's a nice deer and told me to take pictures. And I appreciate that. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it once that mount is done. It is currently at a taxidermist in South Texas and will be shipped to my home. And you will probably see it here. I am likely going to take my first deer and put it with my wife's first deer, her first buck, and put it in a different room in the house. My wife, her first buck is in a shared guest space we have. So I'll probably reunite those because in our Texas house, they were next to each other. And I'll put the Texas buck where that one is now. But, I value the journey a lot. Hunting for me isn't about a trophy. It's about the experience. It's about the people. I like to think about the struggle, the trials and tribulations. Every animal that I have, every single one, minus the aoudad that you can't see that's to my left, which I also took on this buddy's ranch. Every animal has been met with struggle. Just the ones that you can see in this frame, if you're watching it on YouTube. The first deer ever I took after 3 months of a really long New Jersey season, hunting basically every weekend and as many days after work as I could. One fateful day during the rut, he came under my stand 30 yards, and I let loose an arrow that did a full pass through, and he ran 60 yards or so. This pronghorn I took in Wyoming on the 4th day of the hunt, after I had missed at least a dozen times or screwed up a dozen opportunities, found out my gun was off by a foot at 500 yards somehow, even though I checked 0 at the beginning of the hunt. But I took him at 430 yards and he ran 20 yards and fell. And then this buck, Lopside, I took last season, or 2 seasons ago at this point, probably. I think 2 seasons ago. Yeah, 2 seasons ago. Wow. With Carrie Beeson from the Salty Yak Outdoors podcast on his ranch. And I missed a shot at 20 yards on him. I completely missed with my arrow. He ducked it. It went right over his back. And somehow, 2 hours later, he came back and I was able to get redemption on him after a heartbreaking miss. I look back at those stories, the ones that you can't see, like my elk, and those are fond memories now. They were difficult and frustrating then. This deer is different because there is no long, difficult story or struggle. He was there the first morning of the hunt. All I had to do was wait for him to come into range, pull the trigger, and he immediately fell. The struggle now is with the decision that I made in the moment. And I have to live with that forever. Even if I didn't have a mount, I don't think that there's a part of me that could forget this experience and what I did and what happened. I try to share these not just to provide emotion and be an example, but I want there to be lessons. I want you to take something from this. And I think the biggest lesson that I have is trust your gut. If you are not 100% certain, do not take the shot. In the back of my mind, before I pulled the trigger, I knew that I should have taken a doe. I knew I should have waited. The goal was to take does first. In my mind, at that time, I knew that if I took a doe, I would be taking a buck of a mature class, thinking that this was it. And he wasn't. But there was that point of doubt. There was that little bit of uncertainty in my mind. And I should have trusted it. I shouldn't have pulled the trigger. That's my biggest takeaway. If you are not absolutely sure, do not shoot. You cannot take it back. You might regret passing on a deer, but I promise you the weight of regret of making a bad shot or taking a deer that you shouldn't have, in my case, is heavy. It's much heavier than any deer that I've missed. And I've missed some nice deer. I missed a phenomenal deer at the opening day of bow season in Tennessee. Totally whiffed the shot. I do not regret that at all because it was a clean miss. If I injured that deer, it'd probably be a similar feeling to how I am right now. I don't know which would be worse. I've never actually injured a deer, fortunately, knock on wood. I've never injured one. But I'm telling you, there will be more opportunities. Having shot a deer that I wish I didn't, there's a lot of things that I would give up to take that shot back. But that's not how life works. Fortunately, my friend knows that I was not being malicious. I wasn't trying to take advantage of him. Our relationship goes further than that. I wasn't trying just to take a big ass buck off of his ranch. That's not who I am. And like I said, he did encourage me. He made sure I took pictures with it because I told him I didn't want to. I wanted nothing to do with that deer. In fact, I have not posted a picture of this deer anywhere. The pictures that you see of him on this podcast are the only pictures that I'm posting anywhere. I still have that shame. I just wish I could take that shot back. Not only for the deer, he didn't deserve to have that ending. Fortunately, we're using all of the meat. He is getting mounted. Nothing is going to waste. So it's nothing like wanton waste or anything like that. But he should have had more time. He should have had more opportunity. He should have been able to breed longer. And the other big lesson with this is hunting isn't just about pulling the trigger or filling the freezer. We are stewards of this ecosystem, and we are responsible for that stewardship and conservation. And you have to own the choices and the decisions that you make. Going into the field every single day, you are making a decision to take something's life if you have the opportunity. You are removing an animal from the ecosystem. And for the most part, that's good for the herd. The focus is not on the individual, but on the specific ecosystem, that microenvironment that the animal lives in. Is it good for that ecosystem? And most of the time, that's yes, it is. Mistakes happen and they stay with you. But I think, everywhere else in my life, my failures and mistakes ultimately served as lessons for me to become the person that I want to be. And I'm trying to look at this as a lesson, an opportunity for me to become better, a better conservationist, better at understanding deer and biology, better at making difficult decisions in the field. I think that the best hunters are not the ones that have the biggest deer. I think they're the ones who make the right decisions, even when they're alone and the decision is difficult to make. It's hard when you have buck fever and a phenomenal buck standing under you to not take the shot when you know you shouldn't. I wouldn't say that I knew I shouldn't in this case, but I had my doubts. Those moments truly test your character, and I have work to do. I guess in closing, to sort of round this out, hunting is definitely not always perfect. But that's what makes it real. The emotions, the challenge, the struggles, even this struggle, make hunting very real. My mistake taught me a lesson that I'll never forget. If I am not 100% sure, I can't pull the trigger. I don't have a clean resolution of this. I'm not confident I ever will have a clean resolution to this. But if this helps even one person remember my story before taking a shot that they would regret, and they don't take it, I consider that a win. And then my story was worth telling. I don't want empathy. I don't want anyone to feel bad for me. I need to take ownership for what I did. I'm sure some people will hear this story and talk about privilege of being able to hunt a South Texas ranch and have opportunity to shoot a deer like that. Yes, I'm very lucky that I have the friends that I do. I acknowledge that. But the lesson behind that has nothing to do with the size of the deer. And if that's all you took out of this, then you're probably not my target audience anyway. I said in the beginning that I like to share my mistakes so that you don't make them too. And I hope that this podcast does that. Every podcast, I say that time is our most valuable resource, and I don't take it for granted that you chose to spend it with me. And that is just as true right now on this podcast today. I hope that my story helps you in whatever way that it does. If you have a story that comes to mind of yourself, I would love to hear it in the comments, or you can reach out to me on Instagram at EndurHunt, ENDURHUNT. It's the social media platform that I am most active on for EndurHunt. Again, I don't have a clean resolution to this, but I'm going to keep trying to be the best person that I can, the best hunter and conservationist that I can. I appreciate y'all very much for listening, and I'll see y'all next time.